Hello and welcome to the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show live in the On Purpose Woman magazine and global community Facebook page. I'm Ginny Robertson, one of the hosts of the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show, where we talk about with real women who are living their lives on purpose and bringing their unique gifts to the planet. I'm also the founder of the On Purpose Woman global community and the founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm here today with author Dr. Dora Vilk-Shapiro. Dork. Oh my goodness.
Dork.
It's the Vilk and
a dentist can be dorky. That's okay.
Oh, no, I'm so sorry. I didn't start that one over. I am here with author Dr. Dora Vilk-Shapiro, whose pen name is Doris Vilk. And we'll be talking about summer heat, cool down with a juicy read. Thanks for being here with me, Dora. And I'm sorry for insulting you right out of the line there, you know?
It's a pleasure.
I'm really excited to dive into this conversation, but first I want to tell our viewers a little bit about you. Dr. Dora Vilk-Shapiro found in retirement that she possessed other talents besides fixing teeth. Words and imagery and a creative spark helped her leave her comfort zone and choose a path of allowing an entire world to evolve. Writing can satisfy needs you desire, as can reading. Courage and strength and reading builds your brain muscles, so prepare to be surprised and aroused. I do want to talk about your books, of course, and your writing process and why you started all this, but let's start with why you left dentistry, because I know that's a story that you talk about.
Oh, wow. So I left dentistry. It was interesting. It was a little bit of a perfect storm. I was diagnosed with uterine cancer, which is, when you hear that C word, that's life-changing enough. But my main reason in my mind was because I had started having problems with my hand. I developed something called focal local dystonia, which is a very fancy word that just means like my fingers would cramp up. And you can imagine as a dentist, you can't have your fingers cramp up and do your best work. So what happened as a result of that, and in trying to get that diagnosed, because it would happen all of a sudden, and I would go to a neurologist, let's say a movement disorders neurologist, and it wouldn't happen, of course, during their examination, and it was so difficult to get diagnosed. And so that whole process of seeing my career end way before I was ready to end it, of having that, I wanted to be a dentist since I was 10 years old. So that my whole identity was being Dr. Dora Vilk-Shapiro. And that created an anxiety and a depression that became, unfortunately, very clinical. And the irony is that my disability insurance is actually paying on my mental rather than my physical, whereas in my mind, it's physically impossible for me to do the dentistry. But I even realized that the anxiety became something that wasn't going to allow me to continue in that profession. So even teaching became like where I couldn't be in the clinic because I was getting too much anxiety over like if the student wasn't able to complete something and I as an adjunct professor had to come in and take over. I was so in my head about was I going to be able to perform the procedure, and being the perfectionist that I am, I'm like, I just can't. I got to leave it. And it was very difficult.
Yeah. And let me just add here that you wrote a really good article for On Purpose Woman magazine. Oops, I just lost you, Dora. I'm going to keep talking. Maybe Dora will get back in here in just a minute. But Dora did write a very good article for On Purpose Woman magazine. And her article is about this whole process that she went through of trying to.
I'm so sorry. I just lost you there for a minute.
Okay, well, I just kept talking and I'm telling everybody about the article that you wrote for the magazine.
Oh, yes.
Which deals
I
with
talked
this
a lot about that.
Yeah, this deals with this topic of grief and having to leave something that you were born to do, you felt. And some really great advice on how to cope with that sort of thing. So I just encourage you all to go to onpurposewomanmagazine.com and look at the July-August issue and read that article by Dora.
Mhm.
So Dora, you've left dentistry and you're in this depression. You probably
Mm.
didn't pick up a pen right away and start writing, did
Oh,
you?
no, no, not at all.
So what got you to pick up the pen, or did you have the inspiration first, or did you just start
Wow.
writing things
Well,
down? Or
I had the idea for this story for years, since I was in college, and had this daydream about, I was, it wasn't a mistake at the beginning of the program. I was a dork, I was a science major, going to classes, wanting to be a dentist. And I had this daydream of this actress and model, and who had all the men after her, and who had all the talents that I always had looked up to but didn't possess myself. And it was like, again, I always talk about perfect storm, but I think it's more the universe sending you the energy that you need at a time. It was when my career was ending, and at first, I hadn't been diagnosed, so I didn't know what exactly was going on. So I started to just work less, like work part-time, thinking that if I rested my hand, that I would be better, right? And so I started to read a lot because I was lost. So I said, well, what did I enjoy when I went on vacation? Well, I enjoyed reading. What do I like reading? Things that are very different from myself, because as a dentist, you can imagine everything I read was science journals, things to learn how to treat my patients better. But on vacation, what did I love was, love stories and romances, because I always mention my lovely husband. We're going on 39 years of marital bliss. But you know what? My husband is like a Winnie the Pooh. But sometimes I say a woman needs a little Tigger. Like I think he missed some of those sex ed classes, but don't let him know that. So, anyways, so 50 Shades of Grey was really big back then. And I had friends who loved it, and I had friends who hated it. And I was so curious, what is in this book that everybody is so conflicted by? So I decided to read it. And guess what happened? This little piglet that was best friends and in love with Winnie the Pooh realized, whoa, there's something more in life than honey and the tree. Like, hello. And it awakened a sexuality in me, maybe partly because I was dealing with feminine issues like uterine cancer, and considering myself like, what was I as a woman if I didn't have what the parts of me that made me female? And so it all came together. I was talking with my hygienist, who I actually dedicated the first book to, because she was really into these sexy books, and she started introducing me to, oh, you like these sexy books? Well, let me share some other authors that write in this genre. And I would have never thought. So for some of you out there that may be very conservative, like I was, and in many ways still am, like the real Dr. Dora is kind of conservative, dresses pretty, classy, like doesn't have a lot of, I wouldn't consider myself as very sex appeal kind of person. And but I found that part of me in choosing to read a genre outside of my comfort zone, some of which was very not me. I don't think I'll ever get into, some of the really naughty stuff that you can find in these genres. But a part of me was like, oh, yeah, this is kind of cool. And so Sharon, my hygienist, and I would go out to lunch, and I shared this story I had from way back in college. And she's like, that's a really cool story. I would read that. And so I was on vacation on a cruise. Everybody knows how much I love to cruise, and even my heroine loves to cruise. We put that in the books. And So I was on a cruise. I finished what I was reading early, and I don't know why all of a sudden the story was just in my head. And I just took out my mini iPad and I just started to write scenes. It wasn't edited, it wasn't into any kind of order of a story or anything. It was just all these daydreams of scenes of this heroine, Susan. I always knew it was Susan. And actually, I don't want to give the story away for those that haven't read it, but the original love story was Susan and Dale, not Susan and who comes in to be the protagonist. And I just started writing the scenes, and that's how it began. And the next thing I know, I was super into it. I joined Romance Writers of America. I joined Mystery Writers of America. I started to attend some of their conventions. I started to ask a lot of questions, looking for an editor, looking for a graphic designer, because I see a lot of these genre books of these steamy romances on Amazon or other book sites, and they're all so similar. They're all like the Christian Grey rich guy. They're all about the woman being submissive, and I'm like, that was not my story. Even though some of those things that people in that genre like in terms of describing the naughty acts to create and stimulate those senses. But my story is kind of more like a real person that you would meet, a physician, an actress, and a model, and what kind of family she grew up in, what kind of family he grew up in, real things that happen in life. And also, if we're alive and we're lucky to reach our golden years, we've had a lot of traumas and abuse, maybe not in the way that I write about it in my books, but metaphorically, it may feel like that for us. And so for me, it was about using anything negative to also turn it around to show that a person can become better and thrive because of a negative situation that they were in. And so that really became my goal. And I think what makes me different in my books is that I'm in that genre, but yet I'm really not. I'm also in a mystery or romance and, overcoming trauma. And it was healing for me as I wrote it. And I hope that it can be healing for some of the readers as they, learn to hate the villains and love the heroines and the protagonists and the different characters in the story.
Well, I want to talk about your main character in just a minute, but when you talked about Christian Grey, it reminded me of something I read one time, and it said, if Christian Grey was a scraggly guy and lived in a shack in the woods, it would be an episode of Criminal Minds.
Oh, totally. He was so creepy, right?
It was, right? Yeah, yeah. So you wrote a trilogy. You didn't just write one book. You wrote three.
Nope. Three. I can't believe it. 3 books.
3 books. And your central female character is Susan Chatham. Was there something specific that you wanted Susan to convey to women readers?
Yeah, I wanted her to be strong. I wanted her to be beautiful, but I wanted her to be humble. If those of you read the books or will read the books, even though she was a model and an actress and a celebrity and lived a very privileged life, she was also, because of her upbringing in her childhood with the way her parents had been, was made to be very humble and not to be presumptuous about who she was. And I believe that for us as women, to celebrate our successes, but also be humble and to be willing to understand those that are less privileged than us. And so that was part of what I wanted to convey in my books with her, with the heroine.
Yeah, and I've read your books, and so she is a very likable. You want to like root for her and say, "Go, way to go." Do you ever find yourself talking to her like? Probably a lot, right?
Oh, totally. sometimes when I'm in my dark space, when my anxiety hits me, and I look, there's a reason the disability company is paying, is because I even to come on today, it took a lot of courage for me.
Mm.
I majored in speech communications in college, and I come across very confident, but inside it's still like very vulnerable. But I know that part of Susan is inside of me, and I look to her. When in times of trouble, I do think, ooh, what would Susan do? She didn't let that stop her. She was courageous. And when I wrote my book, being this conservative dentist and then publishing that, like indie publishing it, I felt like I had walked naked on, I live on a condo on the beach on A1A, which is like Route 1. I felt like I walked outside naked. I just felt so exposed. I felt like, what people are going to think so differently of me. They're going to think I'm some kind of wacko sicko. They're going to think I'm the criminal mind, right? Coming up with some of these abuse scenarios, not realizing that I did a lot of research. I didn't come up with all that stuff, but a lot of it was research. So I do look to Susan for empowerment, and hope that anyone that reads the Chatham series will see, like, hey, yeah, someone can screw you over and treat you bad, but you can be better than that. You can thrive, not just survive, but thrive and be more. And so I do turn to her.
Well, first, I want to thank you for bringing up your anxiety, and that it takes some extra whatever for you to even come on an interview like this, because I think it's important that other women hear that, because women probably look at you, even right now, looking at you, how you're being here, you're doing a great job here, and think, oh, I could never do that.
Yeah,
Or,
and they have no
I've got
idea.
too much anxiety, I couldn't handle something like that. But
When they
here
have
you
no
are.
idea that when I get up from this, I need a shower because I'm drenched, and I
Yeah.
have a fan blowing on me.
And you do it anyway.
We do, but I force myself. I bring up my courage, and I'm like, but wait, you were this dentist. You won these community awards. You write these books that people enjoy. It's like, you got this. You can do it, and just push yourself, because I know that physically and mentally it's good for me, and it's good for any women out there, or men, because a lot of men have read the books too, that to push themselves, and to get out of your comfort zone, and not to be afraid. Like, I was brought up Cuban Jewish, two cultures that are so limiting in terms of sexuality. I mean, do you think of you're gonna go see a sexy movie, do you think of, let me go see that Yiddish Jewish movie? Or
I think of Cuban women, though. Cuban women, I think of.
But Cuban women are very, like, in Spanish, we use the word presumida. They love, like, Ariana Grande, your makeup and your eyeliner and lots of makeup and glitzy clothes. But the culture, in terms of vetting who you're going out with, or some of the really deep Latin cultures, they still want you with a chaperone. And my parents, a week before my wedding, and my husband came, we drove down from college together, and he was going to sleep over before driving to his mom's in Miami. They made us sleep in separate bedrooms, and I had to sleep with one of my younger sisters, so there wasn't going to be any him popping into my room in the night. And this was a week before I was getting married.
Yeah.
So I'm like, me being sexy, like, it's just really, it's harder than pulling teeth.
Oh gosh, I love that. I've never heard you say that before. I love that. So, I've always heard you refer to your books as steamy romance novels.
Yeah.
You also consider them to be erotica?
They can be, yeah. I mean, I can't deny the sex scenes are sex scenes. It describes body parts, it describes fluids. I'm like, how do I say it G-rated? Because we're on Facebook Live. It uses all your senses of your smell, taste, visual, what you're hearing, what you're touching. So yeah, I mean, some of it's erotica. I would definitely
Yeah.
say yes.
And I think to me, the difference between, not that I'm a big expert on porn, but I think a lot of the difference between what separates erotica from porn is when women write it. And
Yeah,
have you ever heard
and
women say that to you? Have they ever said they appreciate this kind of
yeah,
sexy, steamy stuff
and
coming from a woman's perspective?
yes, because if you look at a lot of these books, they're more about the man.
Mhm.
Like 50 Shades of Grey is more about Christian. Crossfire series, which is famous, Sylvia Day, that's more about Giddy and Cross. Most of them are about the man. Whereas I feel in my books, it's really more about Susan, about the female. Like, yes, there's hot men, and yes, they give and create a lot of pleasure that we all enjoy. But the book is more from Susan's point of view. My covers are not a man without a shirt. My covers are, well, it starts out that she's in prison. So people think my books are not BDSM, which is something that 50 Shades of Grey and some of these other books are.
Mhm.
Who's on the cover? Susan. Who's on the cover? Susan. So all three covers are Susan, and all three books were both edited, and the graphic designer and the person that helped me publish were all other women. So it was supporting women, other women business owners. It's for,
Yeah, so it's really
yeah,
for women, and
it's
yet
for
men have
women
been enjoying
more,
it
but
too.
men like it. I mean, one of my faculty members, a man that heterosexual, really enjoyed my book. And even some gay men have really enjoyed my books. So it's really for anybody. It's and I do have a lot of diversity. I grew up in the Bahamas and in different countries with a lot of diversity. And so I do have a lot of diverse characters in my books.
And you are a really wonderful storyteller. You can really weave a story so well together. So that's also, if it were just about steamy romance, it still wouldn't hold weight. It would have to have a great story behind it. A
Mm-hmm.
great story. And you're a mystery writer as well, as you said. This is not just all of this is mystery. This is, you don't get
Yes, yes. There's a lot of story in there. So
yes,
in fact, one of my best friends, she went to Catholic school. She is not into the sexy. And she read my books and would skip over the sexy parts because there's enough story there for a
yeah.
story. And then I have a friend who's in her late 80s, and she loved the sexy parts and she highlighted them because she just wanted to go back and read them.
Oh,
So
that's
you know what? Whatever floats your boat, that's take
yeah.
what you want. What you want.
I want to go back to something you touched on a little while ago, and that was how you felt like you were walking naked down the highway when your book came out. Did you get
Mhm.
any pushback from any of your friends or family members?
Oh,
Has your
my
son read the
family
book?
member. Okay, my son was in dental school and then oral surgery residency. He was very helpful. The third book's dedicated to him. He came up with the title. He helped me when I would ask questions like, okay, you see a woman in a bar and you want her so bad. What are you saying to yourself? And he goes, I'd like to tap that, and you'll remember that out of the book. Because when I asked my husband, it's Winnie the Pooh, I'm going to get honey. So he was wonderful. In terms of pushback, I would say yes. I decided on the pen name Doris Vilk because when I came from Cuba, that's how they translated my name.
Oh, really?
And so I was Doris Vilk for the first 13 years of my life until I moved back to the United States from the Bahamas. I was in maybe 8th grade. And in the United States public school system, they look at your birth certificate. And my birth certificate, my name is Dora. My name was never Doris. So when picking a pen name, I thought, well, Doris Vilk, it's kind of similar to my real name, but I always wondered, that little girl, is she the naughty one? I'm thinking she's the naughty one because I'm like, all that came from inside my head. So it's got to be me. And yet, what I feel the real me is not that. And yet, somehow, all that's inside of me. And that's how I came up with Doris Vilk. So one of my sisters, I have 3 sisters. I won't say which one because I don't want to get them in trouble. But one of them was very upset because she did not want that kind of genre and she didn't want the Vilk name used. And interesting that out of the 4 girls that we are, and the name Vilk was going to die out, but that's a story for another day, maybe an article and on purpose when you have to change names because of moving from one country to another. But the name Vilk was going to die out. And I'm really the only one that legally has Vilk in their name, Vilk-Shapiro, whereas my sisters just took on their husband's name. So I got pushed back from her. I did. And in the end, she really came through for me. She's the one that had like a book signing party at her house and invited people from her homeowners community. And I gave a little author talk and we played games. And so she came around, but I think that was hard. My mother has not read my books. She's very old fashioned and
Probably even though she's well, huh?
Yeah, it's just as well. And if my dad was still around, that would have been tough. I think he passed before I did this, and I don't think he would have been too happy with me.
Well, Dora, for anyone watching who wants to escape with a great summer read, get in touch with their passions, their senses, romance, with villains they'll disagree with or despise maybe, or characters they'll fall in love with, how can they find your books?
Okay, so you don't want to have to go sit, I live on the beach. You don't want to have to go sifting. You don't want to have to go digging. You want to find the star book. So easiest way is all my books are on Amazon and Kindle and print. It's Love Arrested, Love Attempted, and Love Avenged on Amazon under Doris Vilk. And Vilk is like milk with a V instead of an M. Or the easiest thing is to go through my website, because my website has links to the social media and to all the books. And you're not buying them from me. It's just taking you to exact page on Amazon. Okay. And that's www.dorisvilk.com. So it's really easy. And I write blogs. I write on a lot of relationship things. So even if sexy isn't your thing, you might enjoy my blog section because and also on Fridays on my Facebook, the Doris Vilk Facebook, I always do different articles on relationships and stuff, because part of romance is we want romance in our real lives, and how do we improve that? So
okay. Well, before we wrap up, I know you're writing a new book that is not a steamy novel. You want to say some words about that? Now you came.
Well, as you see, I love toys. So my new venture that will be under Dr. Dora Vilk-Shapiro, and my daughter-in-law's name, which is Nicole Talia Shapiro, is going to be about my grand dog Rupert. It's a children's book for real young children, and it's already been written and edited, and it's currently with the illustrator. Again, I tried to use all women. Well, how do I say, the editor, although the editor who edited it isn't a woman, it's the woman's company, and her spouse is the one that specializes in that young children's market. So he did it. And the illustrator is a woman that a lot of people know here, Sabrina Fajardo, who's a wonderful graphic artist. And it's already been drawn. I've approved a lot of the drawings, and she's in process of inking, which I believe is when you're coloring it in. And so I don't know when it's going to be coming out. She's had some health issues. She's moving to a different state, but I know she's working on it. And that'll be the next
done
thing.
as far as
my part's done. There's nothing else I can do. I paid. I've done my end of it, other than approving the colorings and maybe the layout of the book. It's going to be Rupert Winston's Gotcha Day.
Looking forward to seeing that. I can always find somebody I know who would like that book for their child. So
oh yeah, I think that'll be a little easier sell. You know, the genre I'm in is tough. It's tough because you can't market it. You know, Instagram and Facebook, even these ankles. Like, what the heck, nudity? It's feet, but they will shut you down.
Nudity? You got called out for that?
Oh yeah, no, they wouldn't run. You know, some of the ads, you just see like legs. Nope, they shut you down. So how people like, you know, 50 Shades, or there's a famous photographer. I love his photography. He photographs a lot of nudes or very suggestive lingerie poses, and I love to follow him because those kind of things give me inspiration for the sexy scenes or the lingerie. And I'm like, how they can post that on their Instagram when it's a lot more nudity than feet. But, you know, I guess money talks. I don't know.
Maybe the handcuffs that are getting to them as well.
Maybe it's the handcuffs, you know, although my books are not BDSM. They're really not, you know, that's not me.
Well, Dora, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your talent, your enthusiasm, your words, and your humor with us. I just love talking with you. I appreciate it.
I love you, and I love everybody in the group here. I mean, you know, a lot of it, who I got for the editing for the Rupert book, I got through your group. And I'm working with Catherine right now in her challenge of doing more Facebooks to try to get this anxiety out of my system. And I'm taking piano from somebody that indirectly I met through your group virtually. And because that's actually been helpful for me, because in piano, you're stretching your fingers. So I'm not very good at it. She says I'm good, but trust me, I'm not very good at it. But it's a fun to stimulate your brain. So thank you so much, because I love On Purpose Global Women's Community. It's awesome. I enjoy the magazines. I enjoy the women I've met here, following them, following the people that they follow. I've met some really cool people. So you have a great group here. So thank you for founding it, and you keep it up, you know.
You're welcome. And thank you for those really kind remarks. I appreciate it so much. And I want to thank all of you for joining us for the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show, live in the On Purpose Woman magazine and Global Community Facebook page. If you love this interview and you want to share it with your friends, it will be on our YouTube channel in the next 48 hours. So go on over to the On Purpose Woman Global Community on YouTube, subscribe and sign up for notifications. There are over 100 inspiring, informative, and fun shows for you to watch on our channel. And in May, we started sharing videos of the speakers at our On Purpose Woman Global Community Zoom meetings. So that's an added bonus. We have 2 more shows for you this week. Tomorrow, July 14th, Catherine Yarborough, the other host of the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show, will speak with Peg Duchesne about how words matter with your marketing. And on July 15th, Friday, I'll talk with certified divorce coach Marnie Simpson about divorce coaching and how you can get it right from the start. A busy week for sure, with very diverse topics. You can always find out what's going on with the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show by going to www.opwgc.com and clicking on Purpose Woman magazine. Look for the spread in the table of contents. And while you're there, check out the rest of the magazine for great articles, advertisers, and lots of other juicy stuff. Thank you again for watching the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show.